Welcome to the Rise to Thrive podcast. Rise to Thrive is your real talk resource to elevate your life and business through growth, wellness, and manifestation. With your co-host, Linda Tate, financial advisor turned life and wealth strategist, founder of Leela Life, and self-named Nordic shaman, and Amelia Travis, yoga teacher turned multi-six-figure business coach, founder of Stoked Yogi, and spiritual warrior. We're here to help you level up and create the life you imagine, sharing inspiration and strategy to elevate vibes and consciousness so you can rise to your best self and thrive as your best self. Tune in weekly to Thrive Daily. Tuning in now. It's 2019 and your investments can be in alignment with the world you are creating. Change Finance is not your normal Wall Street company. They are woman-owned and offer investments that change the world. Go to change-finance.net/MBTY to learn more and start investing today. Change Finance is a registered investment advisor. This is not an offer to buy or sell any product.
But what if you can't trust yourself? Welcome back to Rise to Thrive podcast with your hosts, Amelia Travis and Linda Tate. And today we are tackling a subject that can be challenging for many people. And that is, how do you trust yourself? Welcome back to the show, Linda.
What's up?
So I'm super excited to dive into this topic this week because it's something that's been making itself evident in my world, both in myself and in my clients and female friends, especially over the past week. And I think that there's often little signs or nudges from the universe asking you to pay attention to something that is a lesson that you have agreed on a higher spiritual level to learn. So I feel like right now I'm in an opportunity to learn more about trust, and I'd love to unpack this with you. Linda, will you join me on this ride?
Let's buckle up. Doing some swirlers on the roller coaster.
So I want you guys to take a moment and consider, when was the last time that you had a hard time trusting yourself? When was the last time that there was a decision that you needed to make and you were waffling in that place between yes and no, and it was difficult to trust your yes because there was fear that followed, and it was difficult to trust your no because there was fear there too. Linda, have you ever found yourself in this position?
Definitely. And as you're saying that, what comes to mind is how many times I don't know, I'm confused, I'm not sure, whatever can find a place not only in our thoughts, but our vocabulary very regularly, that we're giving away the power and ability to continue to develop the trust muscle, because you do know you're very clear and you have an opinion most of the time, or you have a gut tuition, and it's about being able to tap into that. And it takes, I think, first awareness and like the willingness to want to learn and grow and step into this practice. And with that awareness, you might not get it right every time, but you get to start kind of doing little tests with yourself to practice. And it's really powerful when you can start to believe in yourself, have the confidence, and trust yourself. It's like powerful and magical.
Dude, I'm so glad that you said that, because, we've talked about language before and the power of language, but as you said that, I realized how many times I will diffuse a strong opinion or a strong statement or a desire, what I want, with, I don't know, like following it up with, well, I don't know. And it's habitual. Like, it'll be like, you'll say something, hey, Linda, I'd really love to go get a burrito today. What do you think? And then if you're like, yeah, I mean, whatever, I could go for a burrito or not. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe not. But it's like, I really want that burrito.
Right.
You know what I mean? I do know. I want you, burrito. I want to eat you, put you in my belly. I haven't had breakfast today yet. So
I still remember the time I had my first burrito.
Wow, do you?
Yeah, I was in college, or I was in high school.
What?
I was 17.
What?
I was in Indiana on a
This is like the peril of growing up in Florida, people. I mean, let me just We have a moment
was
of
in Indiana.
silence for all the burritos that Linda never ate.
But I was in Indiana. That's kind of weird. Like my first burrito was in Indiana on a recruiting trip.
Yeah,
That
I'm
was a
sorry
side
about
note,
that.
yeah. But I trust myself now and know I love a burrito.
Amen. So listen, so first invitation to you as you're listening is to examine your language and how frequently do you diffuse something that you're saying with, but I don't know, or I'm not sure, or I'm confused, or
And
preface what you're going to say with
a
that.
side note, like you're driving the other person crazy. Like someone, like it's helpful when someone leads something, right? And so in that example, when it's that moment where you're making the call on lunch, let's say, and you're like, Linda, I really want a burrito, and I'm like, I really don't know in that other moment, and then you're like, yeah, I don't know either. And it's like, if you could have just stood in what you actually wanted, now we're getting burritos, everyone's happy. Now it's 2:00 and we move on with our life. Like, think of how many times like you're just adding extra time because you can't say, I do know, I want this.
Yes. So the reason that this topic came up this week, you guys, is I was noticing a pattern. I spoke with a few different women this week about specifically them trusting themselves to evolve to the next level of their business or to make what they perceived as a big decision, whether that was in a relationship, choosing to end a relationship, choosing to move, or investing in something that felt a little bit risky to them, right? And the interesting thing was, over the last 5 days, I had 3 different women tell me explicitly, I just don't know if I can trust myself to make this decision. And by the time the third one said it, I was actually like, I was laughing, not in a mean way, not in a mean way, but just in a sense of observation of like, wow, this is so common for us. And we get stuck because we feel like we can't trust a yes, like, yes, I'm going to move to this place. I'm going to do this thing, because then it's going to stretch our concept of, identity. Who is that going to call us to be? And it's also going to put us outside our comfort zone. But we also feel like we can't trust the no, because the no then means that we're agreeing to stay in the experience that we're currently having.
FOMO.
Amen. Then FOMO comes in and we're like, what am I missing out on if I say no to this? Or one thing I've also noticed is the idea that this thing, this particular decision, investing in this program or deciding to end this relationship or make this move, we think that somehow that thing is going to be the decision, the magic wand, the secret to being the person that you want to be or to having the next experience in life that you want to have. And that really gets me, because I'm going to say something a little bit probably contestable here, but there really are very few wrong decisions, my friends. Sit with that for a minute. There are very few wrong decisions. Now, we could get into a discussion about moral, philosophy, and there are some things that are wrong, right? Perpetration against other human beings is wrong. Murder is wrong. Rape is wrong. These are, I think we can say there's a wrong decision.
And I think, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole.
Go ahead. How long?
If you killed someone that was killing your kid, like that would be an example of a time where one could say, like, murder could be okay,
justified,
sure. Right? Yeah. Justifiable, and not okay. But I think that I really went there and I didn't mean to, so I apologize.
No, I think that's great. And I think let's own that, and let's keep that as an example of like, trust yourself, trust that you know what is true, because there are a lot of reasons, and we'll unpack some of these, why we might, and I say we, the collective we that I'm talking about here is especially women. So dudes, if you're listening, if you're with us, I'm sure a lot of this is going to be relevant to you.
And women, and encouraging, like there was a time that I had to sit down about impact investing in my previous finance career. And I'm meeting with a guy that does a lot of great work in the impact investing space. And I'm like so passionate. And at that moment, I was having trouble finding my words. And he literally looks at me and he says, trust yourself, you know this. And it was, to zoom way out, I'm like, oh my God, how many times am I not able to completely convey what I want to because I'm getting in my head or doubting. And it was such a beautiful gift in that moment. So the guys, to all the guys that it may come easy, like, thanks for being gracious with the ladies who are also learning how to use their trust muscle.
Yeah, and so let's talk about why we think there's a difference in this for men and women, because I think this is important. Ladies, I want to invite you to consider your formative years, right? Your childhood, your adolescence. How many times in that period did you have an experience that suggested to you that you couldn't trust your needs, you couldn't trust your wants, you couldn't trust your emotions, you couldn't trust your perspective on something, or you couldn't trust your body, right? Because the thing is, we are often socially and culturally conditioned into not trusting ourselves. And by that, I mean turning off certain parts of ourselves so that we are more palatable or more acceptable to other people. We are especially told to turn off our strong emotions, specifically anger, right? Like, girls are sugar and spice and everything nice. Girls don't get angry. Girls don't yell. They don't hit, right? We're taught not to do that. We're also taught to turn off our strong emotions, like crying. Crying makes people uncomfortable. Don't cry. Stop crying, right? If
Stop
we're really
crying,
hurt or
Linda.
really sad, right? We're told to turn that off, or that we're being hysterical, that we need to calm down, right? We're taught not to trust our desire because, oh, little girls don't rub themselves on the corner of the couch. You know what I mean? Little girls don't touch themselves like that. And so it's like, I think I don't know. I laugh at my 2-year-old, he has a boner and he's like, Mama, I have boner. And I'm like, cool, man. Like, right on, And I wonder, would I be so open and gracious about my daughter if she were expressing, something about her sexuality at such a young age that she found interesting, right? I hope that I would be open to that. But I think, Linda, I would love to hear, did you ever have experiences growing up? And it sounds like you did, because you chimed in a little bit there, but where, you were told by either teachers or parents or friends or just the media that, you can't trust your own perspective on this. You can't trust your own body or your own feelings. Do you feel like that was true for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as a collective, there's, whether it be unconscious or extremely conscious, but this suppression that had tended, and I say had because you see major changes and waves happening right now, but especially with women, right? I was growing up in the 90s, that there's like an expectation and a certain way. And as you were saying, what you were just saying, I pictured like how long and how many times in my career that I felt like I couldn't speak up or had to be a certain way in meetings, or my opinion didn't matter, or like you're just in like the guys club. And being an athlete, it's predominantly like male athletes. Like I worked in finance, like just a lot of guys. I always found myself around a lot of guys, and kind of in a way, I think I like overdeveloped sometimes some of my masculine energy, because it was like I had to like survive. And that this is something that until the most recent couple years that I was even aware of the feminine and masculine in that way, and understanding like softening, but still being in my strength and power with grace. But certainly, and I'm laughing too, I would be like the girl running recess races, beating all the guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a lot of ways, yes and no, because I felt in a lot of ways like fearless and just like, why can't, like, it was always like a, why can't I? Like, that was a question that I would also ask. There was certainly an expectation. I mean, I can hear my mom right now saying like, don't cry, and just kind of grooming a lady how a lady should be, and in cotillion 3 times, and understanding all these little bits to like what makes a woman, and like, shh, or like, don't say that, or don't, now's not the time. And I think the pendulum can swing, because it's like when you've used to that and then you go to the other side where you feel so free and so open, it's like you just uncaged like the wild horse, you know? And
Well, and I hope that every woman gets the opportunity or chooses, makes the decision to open the cage and to let herself out of those restrictive behavior patterns. And it's not to say that you lose sight entirely of social etiquette and you just go balls to the wall wherever you want, whatever you want. I mean, I'm actually kind of an advocate for that, but you know, I understand.
Still couch twerking and well into her 30s.
Yeah, I understand that in order to thrive in society, there are a certain amount of societal expectations that we want to observe. But I do think that that it's really important to consider these restrictive belief kind of themes that maybe are holding you back from even starting to be able to really trust yourself, you know, and those are like, one is perfectionism and people pleasing, right? So like if you are constantly trying to anticipate what other people want rather than just operating from who you are and how you want to be, right? That people pleasing can become a real aspect of that cage. It can really keep you trapped. Likewise with perfectionism, you know, perfection as an ideal is really something of a mirage. Like we're not going to get there. And I think that the most empowered people, period, not just women, have realized that they can trust that they are enough in like giving, you know, pretty close to 100%. Go ahead and give 90 sometimes, 95. You know what I mean? Let that fly. Like that's
80,
okay.
80 is cool too.
Yeah, I mean 73, it's passing, you know. But like letting go of perfectionism, people pleasing, letting go of this concept that you can't trust your body or your desire. I'm going to talk about this especially as we get towards the end of this conversation. Embodiment is so important in trusting yourself. If you are disconnected, you know, we talk about the brain and then we talk about the body, like these are two distinct separate entities, but they are working together. I mean, you have the enteric nervous system, which is basically a brain in your gut. So when we talk about gut feelings and intuition, and I felt in my stomach, whether that's butterflies or it felt like you got punched in the stomach or you're sick to your stomach, like your body is talking to you. It is telling you, hey, go right or go left or don't go anywhere at all at this moment. Just like chill for a sec and observe, right? But if we think like, oh, I'm just sick to my stomach, must be that burrito I ate, instead of maybe being like, or maybe it's the person in front of you who you don't want to work with, or you know, your body's giving you a signal that your brain doesn't want to listen to, right? You know, you mentioned cotillion and you mentioned those times of like people, of you receiving a message somehow, this isn't the place or this isn't the time, right? Like I feel like that feeds into this restrictive belief group of like, that's saying like you're too much, like you're too much right now, your intelligence or your laughter or your, you know, your boldness in talking to other people, somehow that's not appropriate here. You need to be smaller. You need to stop being so much Linda, right?
Totally. I mean, that was real. And I remember you just reminded me of a literal boyfriend at the time who had said, I wish I could just keep you on a shelf and you'd be there for me when I want you.
Holy objectification. Wow. Somebody's been watching a little bit too much media advertising that turns women into objects, man.
Doll?
Yeah. And
I've heard of those. They're called dolls.
Yeah, that's fucking weird. That guy, if that guy's listening, you're a jerk. Hopefully you grew out of that. And then I think kind of the last and maybe super important one too is like this idea that we don't know, circling back to that first thing that we said, and that others know better. I think that is so important.
Yeah, this for me, like, and this is something I would say the past year. And when you brought up like some of the decisions that some of the people you were working with were making over the past week, it's like when it's rooted in the belief that there's something wrong with you that needs fixing versus something that will really accelerate and help you tap into the even more wholeness of yourself. Those are two way different spaces to make a decision or speak from anything. And I would say, like, underlying this is, like, to start with trusting yourself is like trusting that you're perfectly where, and I say perfect in the perfect wholeness of who you are right this second, exactly where you need to be, and you have the capacity and capability to do whatever you want to do, and believing it from this place of strength versus all these things are fucked up with me, I have all this baggage, these are all the things I did wrong. I mean, these are very different spaces. And to be able to tap into your wholeness and then make a decision about what will enhance or accelerate your life, awesome. But when it's
Yes.
just like self-deprecating or fear-based decision making, it's going to end poorly. And I noticed this where you get the body yes, but then you get all the mind no's, and
Mm-hmm.
you get the, you know, self-fulfilling and what am I trying to say? Not self-fulfilling, but the, when you
I think
stop
you were
yourself.
trying to say self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh no.
Yeah,
Self-sabotaging.
self-sabotage. And this is huge because you've gotten the yes, and then you get in your head with all of the no's, and then you forgot to do the yes. And it's like, you know, in every single ounce of your being what the yes is, and yet the mind starts going with its 60,000 points, thoughts a day, and talk you out of it, and you didn't stand a chance. And
Mhm.
so I wanted to say that.
Yeah, and I think, well, I'm just sitting in quiet for a minute because I'm really receiving that. And so I think what we're asking you guys to consider is you do know.
You
You
know so
know.
much.
You know. And other people know too, and they know for themselves, and
Right.
you know for you. And so this idea that others know better, I think what happens is we fall into a pitfall of like, you might look at me, or you might look at Linda, or you might look at your spouse or your boyfriend or your mom or somebody else who you're like, man, they're so embodied, they're so confident, they must know.
I used
Right?
to read
Thinking
by
that they know for you, and they
I
don't know for you. They know for them,
I
right?
used to read bios. I was like obsessed with this for a decade. I would read bios of people and be like, I need to know what they studied, where they studied, what certificates, because I want to be like them.
Oh
And
yeah, girl.
you know, for the full decade, if I would have just been like checking in with me of what do I want, what am I curious about, which I eventually like leaned into and found, but countless hours and energy spent, you know, wanting to know. And my amazing fiance said to me last night, he said, you know, I'm reading in my nonviolent communication book about, I'm not making this
I
up,
know, I love it.
about um about comparison and how unhealthy comparison can be. He's telling me this literally last night, and I'm like annoyed at this point. I'm like, oh, like we have to, you know, like, okay, what did you learn? No, and then so gracious, but it's hitting this exact point home of like, we're planning our experience of a wedding that's not going to be anyone else's, and it's ours. And so the gut check is with me, with him, us as a unit, and every single individual gets to experience that same process with whatever they're moving through for themselves, and then whatever partnerships they're in. But it starts within first.
Mm-hmm.
We're just
Yeah.
bombarded with media,
Mm-hmm.
media.
Well, and so if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm not even sure where I am. I feel like I don't even know where I fall on this spectrum. A couple of things to look for in yourself that might be indicators that you have the opportunity to move more into trusting yourself. If you find yourself often feeling numb or being quiet, like keeping your thoughts, feelings to yourself, if you find yourself trying to be smaller, but physically trying to be smaller by like being obsessed with losing weight, or, you know, or kind of just in taking up space, trying to be smaller, trying to be in the back of the room, trying to,
Shoulders
not people,
down.
yeah, people not wanting to call attention to yourself, dressing, more conservatively so people aren't looking at you. If you find yourself keeping secrets, right? If there's things where you're like, I can't say that, or, I better keep that to myself. If you find yourself hating or ignoring your body, this is a huge, I just got chills all over my body. You guys, listen to your body. Your body knows a lot. If you feel confined, if you feel trapped, like, these are all indicators that you have an opportunity to move more into trusting yourself. And, Linda, a few minutes ago, you talked about the difference between masculine and feminine intelligence, and we kind of let that slide. But I think it's super important to also touch on that for a minute, because you said, being in finance and being an athlete, you found that a lot of times you were in a more masculine energy, and that masculine energy is often linear, it's rational, it's aggressive, it's goal-oriented, it rewards discipline. It's this outward dynamic energy of getting and having and doing, right? Yes, that's the masculine energy. And it's powerful. It gets shit done, right? It's important and we need it. And to be clear, everyone has masculine and feminine energy in them. Everyone has yin and yang. Everyone has sun and moon, et cetera, et cetera. But the feminine is not linear, right? It's a spiral, and it's intuitive, and it's receptive, process oriented, it's pleasure oriented, it's an inward energy, right? And so it's feeling, exactly. And it's being willing to trust your intuition in whatever way your intuition is going to speak to you. And your intuition is going to speak to each of us differently. For some people, they maybe are more visual. They actually might see things or see signs. For some people, we talked about this with a guest recently, you might hear things. For me, I'm a kinesthetic, I think, intuitive. Like, I feel it in my body. I get those full body chills that I know you get too, Linda, when there's something I'm supposed to pay attention to, or a direction that I'm supposed to go, or God, spirit is like speaking to me. I get that in my body, and I get, to thankfully have this awareness of it that I've been cultivating over the years. But I think our culture rewards masculine energy so much and masculine intelligence so much that we forget that as women, we actually have this really beautiful, natural, powerful inclination towards a different kind of intelligence that is, related to pleasure and to like what
it's
makes
effortless.
you feel good. Yes, and it is. It's effortless. So, like, I would love to hear, like, what do you think about that as you have, worked towards this integration of yourself, of these masculine and feminine energies? How have you found that tapping into that feminine energy has helped you trust yourself more?
Well, it makes life way more enjoyable. It slows me down. It allows me to check in and like listen to what is a desire, listen to what do I want to eat, like as simple as that, right? What am I going to do today? It allows me to be in a flexibility that if I wouldn't have opened up to this part of my life and being, I would have never even left my job, right? Like I would have just needed this, I think of like rigidity in a way, like that I needed that. And there's a freedom that I feel like open to. And that's what it feels. It feels so open. It feels like miracles and gifts can come in every day, any moment, because I'm open and ready for it. And I would say if you're feeling like you don't know how to start trusting yourself, you can just ask for support to start trusting yourself, like asking, like open arms, just like, I'm ready to trust myself, like declare that right now. And you're going to start finding the examples and the ways to be able to do it. And it's awkward at first. Like you're going to fuck it up. Like you will. It's going to be weird. You're going to say stuff at the wrong time. You're going to be like, I trust myself now. And you say something like in a group setting that you're like, oh, well, that was a cool experiment. And like, that's exactly what it is. Like, no one's paying attention. It is the experiment. And the one that is paying attention is you choosing over and over and over and over and over and over to play small and repress yourself. And so like, buckle up, pony up, start playing the game like of life in a fun way where you're in this experiment, and make the awkward elevator joke about football.
I like one of the things that I'm hearing from you that I think is really cool is give yourself permission to test this with like little things, right? Like you're ordering lunch and it's like taking that moment of pause and check-in to ask yourself, like, do I want the burrito, back to the burrito, or do I want the salad? And instead of answering with your head and the like negotiation of like,
have the salad.
What did I eat today?
So healthy,
right, exactly.
Many calories.
Yeah. Instead of that, tap into the body and really ask yourself, what would feel nourishing for me right now? Take your little mind's eye 1 hour forward and observe how you're going to feel after you eat this. Which one would bring you more pleasure? And you might be surprised at the answer. Like it might be like, yeah, today is burrito day. Or you might be like, you know what? Surprisingly, the salad sounds really amazing. This is what happens. Like the salad is always shocking me, you guys. I'm like, wow, I want the salad. Yeah, make a confession. Let's hear it.
I eat ice cream a lot.
I ate ice cream last night.
Yeah, and it's like a thing, like this just sounds so simple, and it's like an example of the trusting myself. And I say the ice cream to represent like more of an attitude towards food that tends to often be a restrictive place, especially for women. And I lived there for a lot of years. And when I was able to eat a meal and do just what you're saying, like the burrito versus the salad, or it's after dinner and I do want ice cream, and just trusting that like my body knows exactly what I need. And I haven't felt, I would even say, look as healthy as I do today as I've ever been in my life. And that freedom is available to everyone.
It is. And I think, we want to help for those of you who feel like, man, that is just such a challenge. I'm going to say again that one thing that you might want to check into is how often you're in your head versus in your body. And I think a lot of times we don't even realize this until we do something that requires us to get into our bodies. So we don't even know until we go for that long walk, or we go to yoga, or we go exercise, or have sex, or get a massage. And it's like 20 or 30 minutes into that thing, all of a sudden we'll like kind of shift into the body and be like, whoa, I was really in my head and I didn't even know, right? And sometimes it's like you'll be so stressed, anxious, or keyed up, or so in your head that you don't even, have you guys ever had this experience? You're getting a massage and you're like, you keep waiting for yourself to relax. Like you're like still 40 minutes into the massage. You're like, okay, any minute now, I'm going to like relax, and it's just still not happening. But I think my suggestion here is like, there's the ability to cultivate this trust by starting with your body, right? Starting to get more into your body than into your head, and like listening to your feelings and not just your thoughts, and noticing that those are two actually separate and distinct things that do often feed each other, right? Especially, your thoughts feed your emotions. So if you are feeling an emotion, whether it's fear or anxiety or anger, or, your thoughts start to support it. They're like, yeah. And what about this? And what about that? They like to chime in, and then they like feed that emotion instead of allowing them to be separate and just be like, oh, I'm feeling some anxiety around this decision to, have the burrito, or to invest in this coaching program, or to agree to go to that party. Let me just feel that for a minute, and not actually identifying all the reasons and not weighing the pros and cons, like letting the thoughts be fully separate from that and allowing yourself to just feel the
story.
without the story. Yeah. And see how that shifts and settles. And even if that's really, really hard for you, if you're feeling like it's very difficult for you to ground in a place of presence that enables you to have a neutral observation, a couple questions that I like to ask that I find are super helpful. One is, how can I come more alive right now? And Linda, you have often asked me, like, how could this experience feel 10% better? Is there a way that I could have this experience feel 10% better? And I think those are really similar. How can I come more alive right now? How can I be most true right now is, I think, another very valuable question, because then that it asks you, sometimes we feel like we can't trust ourselves. But I think if you ask yourself, what is true for me? What do I know is true for me? Then that helps us move to a place of trust.
That helped me. That's nice, because you're able to get out of your head, and I think like right into your heart with that question.
Mm-hmm. And then the last one that really helps me is, how can I be fully here? Or how can I be fully me? How can I be fully me in this experience? And that's one that, if for some reason, how can I be most true doesn't shift you into it, how can I be fully me in this? To me, that does shift me into it, because if being fully me means I need to cry right now for the next 2 minutes, then I might say to myself or to the person that I'm speaking to, like, I'm going to cry for the next couple minutes because I need to release this. And if you could please just stay with me as I cry. It's not about you. This is just what I'm really experiencing right now. So there are ways that you can, prompts that you can give yourself to help yourself drop into presence, where it might then become more available. Your truth or your ability to trust yourself might become more available.
How can I support myself right now?
Mm-hmm.
That's
a
when I'm
really
like
good
in the
one.
major overwhelm phase. And I teach this to people, where it's like, if you have 1 minute, how can you support yourself right now? If you have 5 minutes, like, create almost a little like support yourself toolbox that you kind of know your go-tos that work, so you're not spending like the first 20 minutes trying to figure it out. You're like, oh, you know what, I need a bath, let's take a bath, or I need a walk, or I need to phone a friend. Hi, Amelia.
I like how it's like, who wants to be a millionaire? Like, you got your 3 options. You want to phone a friend? You want to use the hint box? But actually, Linda, I now use that practice that you've taught me. I use that with my clients and with myself as well, which is having a 1 minute, 5 minute, 10, 20, an hour. Like, what are the options that are available in that amount of time that will shift me into a mindset that feels more productive and loving towards myself?
Shit works.
Yeah. And even if that feels really challenging, slow down, deep breathing, right? Deep breathing for women, especially deep breathing into the low belly, the space between your navel and your pubic bone, like that second chakra, that sacral chakra, that center of emotions, of creativity, relationships.
Your first incarnation.
Amen. Like, breathe into that space and then ask yourself, if I chose something other than a knee-jerk reaction, what options exist for me right now? And when you slow down enough to do that and you drop into the body, you're going to see that there are a significant amount of options available to you. In fact, that there are maybe infinite options available to you where you were previously only perceiving one or the binary of two, right?
Have you ever too considered that I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. Like, I was going to say too, as you do that, like, Linda, you touched on pleasure. I think that pleasure is the secret sauce for women. And I think it's one of the biggest reasons that we don't trust ourselves, because we're taught to negate our experience of pleasure at a very young age. And that is, I want to invite you guys to think about, we're taught to not eat the ice cream. We're taught to not masturbate. We're taught to contain our overwhelming joy or our overwhelming tears, right? But this experience of pleasure, unapologetic pleasure, just really fully enjoying something, letting yourself make the food noises while you're eating, letting yourself make the sex noises when you're having sex. Like, when we are able to turn on pleasure, and I want to invite you guys to think about this, because I guarantee, maybe not a guarantee, but you've probably met a woman who is embodying her experience of pleasure. Have you ever met a woman who just seems like she is like
Always eating
like
chocolate cake.
no, but she's just like, she's like alive from the inside. She doesn't make any bones about who she is. She doesn't apologize. She asks for what she wants, and then she appreciates it, and she savors it, and she celebrates it. And Linda, you've been one of these women for me. I don't know if you know this, but there's so many times that I've seen you say like, hey, you know what would feel really good right now? Or you know what would be really fun right now? And it's like that enthusiasm for your own pleasure is infectious. It is transmitted to the people around you. You become a conduit for pleasure. And every single woman, you have this ability. So when you trust yourself to come alive and to tune into pleasure, you give other people around you permission to do the same, and you become an energetic channel that is broadcasting and transmitting pleasure to everyone around you. And it's incredibly powerful, and people can feel it. You can feel it when you're around a woman like this, because you're like, damn, like, what is she like, what supplements is she taking? Like, what moisturizer does she use? Look at that dewy glow. Well, that dewy glow is trusting herself and tuning into her own pleasure. Hello.
And this also reminds me of perspective. Like, I think sometimes it's really important, all the time, to have an element of perspective, and starting with, like, you know how amazing it is and how we're beating the odds that we're even here in this exact moment. You know, the odds in the trillions that you're even birthed, like, as your form. And so to be at whatever point in your life alive, with a heart beating, lungs pumping air, like, that's an immediate grounding for me. And it's actually pretty funny. I feel like I had enough kind of like near-death moments where I laugh about it. But I'm like, hell yeah, like, beat a lot of odds. Okay, check, alive. And then the ability to think through, like, if you got the hell yeah going, and then the mind chatter starts and you talk yourself out of whatever you were going for, to consider for a moment the upside of the hell yeah, and, like, truly the worst case scenario. My brother and I have a joke that, like, if all shit hit the fan, he would spend half time in Montana and half time in Cuba. And I always say I'll pick up a chef job in the Bahamas. But it's like, just create perspective where it is that, use that example of, like, the worst case scenario to symbolize, like, everything's gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that upside, you might find when you gain some perspective, the upside, you can't stand to stay in your existing conditions 1 second longer. You know, a 7-year finance career where I knew what the next 20 or 30 years could look like, and that scared me more than the unknown. And so it was just like the yes. And
oh man,
you know, you have
oh,
enough.
I like feel that on such a deep soul level.
You might have enough information of, like, yeah, this isn't changing, whatever you're in, and knowing that the curiosity of whatever could be next or different is there for you and ready for you. And it's just you know, maybe creating some fake perspective to urge you to the action and take that leap of faith.
How many times do you think people experience this in toxic relationships? Because holy cannoli, like, I mean, I identify with what you're saying, in the sense of, like, I remember being in such an unhealthy and unhappy relationship, and not even trusting myself enough, even though I knew on the deepest level, like, this isn't it. Like, this
And
isn't good for me, right?
I
And
think
staying
there's,
in that for so long. And I'm not saying I should have left earlier, because I do believe that everything has unfolded in perfect timing. But I do love what you said about, when you reach the point that you realize that the unknown isn't the most terrifying thing, and that actually the unknown is a place of freedom. Like, and where you are right now is not a place of freedom.
Your continued market research.
Yes.
You've gotten enough data for that one for your lifetime. And I do think there's something to be said about not needing to rush it. Like, you can totally honor yourself and need more information. I've been at those points in my life. And what I will say is, if you can take responsibility for yourself when you're in that needing more information, and you're really doing the work with yourself. So maybe you stay in the relationship, but you start really practicing your trust muscle. What's going to happen is one of two things. You're going to start having mirrored back to you the relationship you didn't even know existed, because you're honoring yourself first. Or whoever you're with is like, this is fucking bullshit. This isn't what I signed up for. Or it's going to be so obvious to you that now that you're operating from your like deepest, highest, truest self, it will naturally shift. And it will actually, I would say, like in a lot of cases, happen so gracefully and so divinely, because you are stepping into that trust with yourself. So if you're not at a point to just say, abandon ship, I'm out of everything, that's okay. But still trust yourself and start with this practice, because the answers are going to come for you, and they could come really fast. That's
Yeah, girl. All right. So I want to invite you guys into a little somatic experiencing or somatic listening exercise. And it's going to be really fun and easy, and also quite short. But this is something that you can do if you feel like you have a hard time recognizing your own yes or no. This is a way that you can start to tune in. And I would suggest, when you learn it, to first apply this with small, what we perceive as like smaller decisions. So like the burrito versus the salad, or like, do I want to buy the blue pants or the black pants, right? Like things that are not necessarily like massive, life shifting decisions, but just starting to practice honing your trust muscle, right? So it's going to go a little something like this. You'll find a quiet place where you can just sit down or lay down. And best if you take your hands to your low belly. I like to unbutton my pants first, or roll down my yoga pants. I can get my hands right on that sweet spot between my navel and my pubic bone. And you'll start by just taking a few deep breaths into that space. And as you take those deep breaths, visualize that space being enlivened and nourished by your breath. So you're really focusing on bringing energy into that low belly area as you inhale. And then as you exhale, allowing the breath to massage your internal organs, and feel as though you're exhaling right out through the crown of the head. And then as the breath is exhaled out the crown of the head, it creates a cascading waterfall that covers the whole body. So you'll do that a few times. Inhale, breathing into your low belly. And then as you exhale, feeling that massage of the internal organs, the breath cascades out the crown of the head and sends a wave of self-trust and relaxation over you. And then one more breath just like that, breathing into the low belly, turning on that space, feeling as though it's getting warm. There's heat expanding into the low belly. And then as you exhale, feeling that relaxation come all the way up out the crown of the head and bathing the body. And then you'll continue this deep breathing, and I'll invite you to let your mind rest on three different things. I want you to think first of somebody that you love, somebody that you're just so affectionate for. This could be your partner, it could be a child, a parent, somebody that you really love. And then I want you to think about a scent or a taste or a touch, something that you really enjoy, like your favorite food or your favorite smell, or a physical sensation that feels so, so good in your body, like a back rub or a foot rub or something that feels amazing. And then last, I want you to think about an activity in which you feel vibrantly alive. When you do this thing, you just feel like you are on top of the world. You feel like you're in your element. Maybe it's swimming or dancing or making music or running or whatever. Think about something that makes you feel vibrantly alive. And then you can ask yourself, as you continue with this low abdominal breathing, a series of questions. And so the first 4 questions you're going to ask yourself, you're going to be looking for what yes feels like in your body. So, Linda, I would ask you, is your name Linda? And for listeners, I would ask you, is your name your name? So you just check in with yourself, ask that question, and then notice the sensations in your body. Pay special attention to your belly, your chest, your throat, and your head. And then ask yourself, do I love the person that you love? Take a moment and observe how that feels in your body. And then ask yourself, do I enjoy the scent, taste, or touch that you said makes you feel so good? Do I enjoy burritos? Noticing how that feels in your body. And then ask yourself, do I feel vibrantly alive when I do this activity that you settled on? Do I feel vibrantly alive when I'm surfing? Do I feel vibrantly alive when I'm free diving? Do I feel vibrantly alive when I'm dancing? And then take a big clearing breath. Let that go. And then we're going to do the same thing, but looking for the no. So as you keep that internal awareness, you would ask yourself, is my name Amelia? Think about somebody who you truly detest, who's contemptible to you, and ask yourself, do I love this person? Think about a scent, a taste, or a touch that just absolutely is repulsive to you. It's disgusting. And ask yourself, do I love eating castor oil? Do I love anchovies? Maybe some of you do. Pick something that's gross for you. And then last, think about an activity that's soul sucking. It's depleting. You cannot stand doing this thing. It just drains you so fully. And then ask yourself, do I feel vibrantly alive when I do this thing? Take a moment to notice the sensations in your body. Then take a deep breath. Exhale and let it go. Linda, I would love to hear, what did you experience in that? Anything with the yes and anything with the no?
Yeah, my yes is, first of all, I was like, I need dried mango and a trampoline.
Okay, cool. Good to
But
know.
it was hard. It was major heart opening. And like, I could just feel the energy moving up my like chest and head. And it felt so like open and light. And then my nose were like, it still was heart, but it felt like a heart almost dropping into my belly and like shoulders folding down without them actually, but just everything kind of concave and like lower energy and like that's the word for it.
Yeah. You know what's really cool? I think this is super cool. In studies, and I think you've actually read this because it comes from David Hawkins' book, but in studies where you're experiencing a lower vibration emotion like anger, fear, guilt, or shame, if you do a muscle test during that time, you actually have only like 10% of the muscle strength that you would have if you were focusing on a higher vibration emotion like hope, joy, peace, love. Like that brain body connection just blows me away.
No, I mean, when you're talking about the ability to tap into joy and like the 10% more fun or more enjoyable, it's like that's the secret for your freedom. That's the secret for your creativity. And if you're feeling jammed up and just completely plateau, you're at a low point, it's like find something, anything, create space, 20 minutes, an hour, a half day, like get back to what lights you up And you're going to come out of that. It could be so fast, something that could have been lasting for so long, by just like allowing yourself to feel what can feel so good again. And it's like adjusting your set point.
Yes. So, you guys, this is the message that we want you to hear today. You can trust your needs. You can trust your emotions, your body, your perception. It's all there for you. So if you've been in the experience of having a hard time trusting your inner yes or your inner no, if and feeling that reverberate outwards and having a difficult time, maybe even trusting other people, just know that that's not permanent. You have the opportunity to change that and to shift from the place of, I don't know, I'm confused, or I'm not sure, into, I do know what is right for me, and I trust myself, and what is perfect for me will always unfold. Linda, take it to the book club.
This week, I'm excited to share with you, as our book club, Become What You Are by homeboy Alan Watts. If you
That's his legal name, by the way, homeboy Alan Watts. Type that into Google, you'll find him.
I think it's like Trip Hop Alan Watts, but there's some pretty good YouTube channels you can get into that his quotes will be playing. And I love the page I opened to, and I want to share this with you. He is enlightened who joins in this play, knowing it as play. For man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. Thus man, right?
That wasn't all of it. There's more. Keep going.
To play with it is therefore not a duty, but a joy. And he who does not see it as a joy can neither do it nor understand it. Mic drop.
All right. We hope that this has been valuable for you today. We would love to hear what your experiences are of learning to trust yourself. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, share it with your friends, share it on Instagram, leave us a review, and make sure you check back with us next week, because we're always dropping gems weekly, so you can thrive daily.
Thrive daily.
Peace out, you guys. We'll see you next time. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today on another episode of Rise to Thrive podcast. We are so stoked that you're here. If you loved today's episode, if it helped you, please share it with a friend, snap a screenshot, tag us on stories at Rise to Thrive podcast, or head to iTunes or Spotify and leave us an honest review. We love you guys. We appreciate you. And until next time, keep rising, keep thriving. See you next time.